So, hello everyone. Here we are again, this time with Atul Sharda, who is the Director of Business Development for Restorative Solutions. We have a few questions for you. Thank you very much for accepting to participate. The first one is, do you have a very varied background? You worked in education and in what used to be education and work and pensions or something like that as well. Then you work at the Ministry of Justice when it was called the Department for Constitutional Affairs, right?
Yeah.
And now here you are working in the development of Restorative Justice's business, the business side of that. So what was the path that took you to working here today in Restorative Justice?
Well, in summary, Miguel, rather than covering my last 25 years of working, I started off in Department of Employment in the job centre in South East London. Learned a lot about people's problems, especially associated with money, getting benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Then moved on to education policy. Ended up with the Department of Constitutional Affairs, and my last role in government was leading restorative justice policy. I led that just for over, I think, 18 months. Brought in the new action plan for restorative justice back in 2012, and since then I've loved restorative justice.
Well, that's very interesting. It's an interesting way to get into this area. Do you think that people in general, but particularly some key stakeholders like PCCs, councillors or service managers, understand fully what restorative justice is and what it entails?
I think it's complex. Definitely awareness and understanding is growing of restorative justice across policymakers, commissioners of services, but I think everyone has a different understanding of it, and a lot of it is still associated with taking the offender's viewpoint of restorative justice in terms of the benefits it can have for the offender, but not many people are thinking about the victim. And that's a challenge because, in essence, restorative justice is about facilitating communication, understanding, emotional empathy with another person. So it doesn't really matter whether it's from the victim's point of view or the offender's point of view, as long as you're dealing with the conflict and harm. And this is where I think most people tend to lose sight of the fact that it's not really restorative justice, it's restorative practice. And hence, people should be looking at it from a wider spectrum in terms of a community-based approach as to the benefits that could be had in terms of early education, prevention, looking at issues around housing, problems that could happen between neighbours, even within the health sector or general workplace.
Yes, well, I think that a lot of people might think, the criminal justice system is geared to deal with offenders, and the victim is always the part that is sort of forgotten. It doesn't really play a role in that process. So that's why people associate the idea of restorative justice, because it has the word justice there, as being something similar that is geared to serve the needs of the offender. So if that's the case, what do you think can be done to get around this situation?
It's a very difficult thing to solve overnight, I think. What it needs is an approach that is more holistic, more joined up. If you think about the opportunity, especially police and crime commissioners have, where they're able to look across their local community, look at the linkages where offenders are beginning their offending behaviours, often quite early on at a younger stage, within school, within care homes.
So you're talking about prevention, early intervention.
Talking about prevention and early intervention, but then also thinking about the local community and the connections between, say, the health sector and the criminal justice sector and the education and housing sector, because each of those you will see certain groups moving around And is it a case that we need to target our resources more effectively in terms of promoting restorative practice to those groups?
That's because you come back to the fact that a lot of these people that get into trouble, they also have other issues, and they also need support from other services, such as they get into debt, they have housing problems, health problems as well, if they're associated, poor schooling, things like that. And you think that RJ is just one of the elements that needs to interact with all those as well.
Restorative practice isn't the solution to everything, but it can be very, very effective as part of a group of interventions. So if you're able to deal with the emotional issues an individual has, maybe that will help them to go onto other intervention rehabilitation programs that can then improve their chances of staying out of the criminal justice system, and that whole cycle of events type thing. And this is where I think practitioners have a key role in thinking about how they work with different organisations at a local level, rather than just focusing on the criminal justice sector. It's branching out and forming relationships with other community-based organisations that they traditionally wouldn't work with.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a very interesting thought. Finally, what do you think are the main challenges for the profession, and perhaps for your specific position as Director of Business Development, for the sector as a whole, for the restorative justice sector?
I think the biggest challenge going forward, thinking about it in 2 years' time, is going to be able to prove the worth of restorative practice. What are the benefits as a whole? And taking into account the investment that's required to achieve those benefits. If you look at it from a total cost point of view, to set up a service, have practitioners running who are fully qualified, accredited, operating to a high level, all requires resources. But what are you actually going to achieve out of that in terms of investment? And this is where we really need to be thinking quite differently in terms of measuring the outputs and outcomes at this point, so that we're able to capture not just the impact in terms of reducing reoffending, improving victim satisfaction, but also those connected issues around, say, improved relationships, improved ability to not always get into trouble through conflict, harm, behaviour, that sort of thing. And it's about improving health as well.
Okay, well, that's very interesting. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for answering our questions.
It's a pleasure, Miguel.
Thank you.